One second. So, a very warm good evening to all of you. Today, we are having part of the series of CNC, City Nature Challenge. We are having the latest talk on fishes, especially marine fishes. So, I welcome you all for this program. I welcome especially Dr. Bijukumar, who's our expert for the day. He is the Dean of Faculty of Science at the University of Kerala and Professor and HOD of the Department of Aquatic Biology and Fisheries. He has been associated with us in WWF India's Kerala State Office for some time now, and coordinating and helping with us with a lot of our programs. And he's a very good friend of ours. He has worked towards environmental education throughout Kerala and India also in a very big way. So extending a very, very warm welcome to you, sir, and for taking the session today. So he'll be talking to us, as I mentioned, about fishes, especially marine fishes, how to observe them and how to identify each other. Welcome, sir, and welcome everybody. Over to you.
Yeah, good evening to all of you. First of all, let me thank WWF for organizing this event and also for a new initiative to observe the urban biodiversity rather. And one of the topic which is assigned to me is on marine fish. At the outset, let me tell you that this is a very broader topic, particularly considering the diversity of fish that we have, and also the complexities in identifying each group of fish may be slightly different. Okay, and all these things compound the problem. So what I will do today is to give you an overview about the common fishes, the most common and highly sought after fishes in India, and try to give you some of the clues for identifying them, and so that you can pursue with further identification. And I will also tell you that there are many experts in India specifically working on marine fish taxonomy. There are experts, but they are highly specific on certain groups. In that limited, and also we don't have a field guide as such for that, even though we have books for identifying commercially valuable species. So that means we have to compile a bit from here and there if you really wanted to have a larger identification of marine fish. So this is a background, and let me share my screen.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. So I'll specifically talk on the marine fish diversity in India. And before we discuss on fish diversity, you should understand why the marine environment is entirely different compared to the freshwater and terrestrial realms. And the reason here, if you look at the number of species and diversity in marine system, the number of species may be less. But if you look in terms of the faunal complexity or diversity of phylum, this is an entirely different environment. For example, if you look at endemism, and there are 13 animal phylum, which is endemic to the marine environment. And altogether, there are 28 out of the 33 animal phylum present in the marine ecosystem. At the same time, if you look at the freshwater environment, the endemism is very less. There are no endemic phylum, animal phylum in the freshwater environment, even though there are 14. In the terrestrial environment, there are 11. We have only one phylum represented there. That too is not, it's an extinct form. And if you look at the marine environment, 13 animal phylum is endemic to the marine environment. Altogether, out of the 33 animal phylum, 28 are present in the marine environment. And that shows that in terms of animal phylar diversity, the marine environment is very, very important compared to any other ecosystem, even though the number of species is less. And as far as the Indian culture is concerned, we have a very, very long association with the marine ecosystem, as well as fish, which is considered as one of the avatars as far as the Indian mythology is concerned. And also the Indian, the India has a long tradition of sea faring people, and also the traveling in the ocean, because we have records right from 2500 BC. We used to monsoon winds to travel across the ocean, and also we used to fish from the ocean, as you can see the signs in the Harappan civilization, etc. And also the people in this country are quite aware of the coastal ecosystem, because they try to, especially in South India, they try to classify the landmass based on the geographical features. And Naithal is an area which is a coastal area in this country. And which essentially means that we have the people in India have a very strong connection with the ecosystems, as well as the environment therein, particularly the coastal people. And even the older literature, like Sangam literature, specifically tells about the coastal people. They are called the Meenavar. Meen in South India means the fish. Okay, and the fishermen people are usually called as Meenavar, and they use a vessel which is called the Marakalam, and those who use Marakalam are called the Marakas. All these things indicate that the India has a very, very long tradition of fishing, and also the fishes were quite known to the Indian people. And also, we have a very strong connection with the ecosystem, and also the people have a very good knowledge on the ocean. They use the patterns of the wind, and also the patterns of the stellar constellations to find out the route, etc. So all these things indicate a very stronger traditional knowledge associated with the marine ecosystem. And coming back to the marine fishery resources, it contributes significantly, particularly if you look at the last year's marine fishery export. It was to the tune of around 55,000 crores, and that itself indicate that in terms of economic value, the marine fishery resources play a very, very important role in India. And we have reasons for that, because the marine ecosystems are quite complex. It include a lot of other systems in the coastal area, including the mangrove swamps, coral reefs, seagrass beds, beaches, salt marshes, mudflats. So all these kind of micro ecosystems and the coastal ecosystems, they play a very important role in enhancing the marine biodiversity as far as India is concerned. So that is why we have a large number of species in the marine ecosystems as well. And the distribution of species is not uniform. As you can see, there are some critical habitats in terms of biodiversity, marine biodiversity, and that is applicable to fish diversity also. If you look at the critical areas, you can see that majority of them are coral reef areas, which essentially means that the kind of fish diversity which you often see in the coral reef ecosystem may be slightly different, because many of them are coral associated species. Whereas in my talk today, I will speak specifically on certain groups of organisms or fishes which are common in many coastal states of India, rather than going by specific ecosystems, because in that case it is entirely different. For example, if you look at the Andaman fauna, Andaman fishes, then it is slightly different from those which are present in the west coast of India. So if those who really wanted to have a knowledge on or database on fishes, this is one of the website where you have to look, which provide you updated knowledge. And that is the Eschermeyer's catalog of fishes. It is an open database where you will get all current classification of fish. So Eschermeyer's catalog of fish is one thing which you can probably look into, not for identification, but for getting the data on specific species of marine fishes, because this is a dedicated website on fishes. Okay. And accordingly, the latest report says that, there are around 37,140 valid fish species globally. Okay. And 18,915 are freshwater. Remaining are the marine. That means 18,225. Which means, earlier there was a belief that the marine fish diversity is so high globally. Now there is the trends says that the systems, the freshwater systems and the marine ecosystems, the species diversity is almost similar. In fact, it is slightly more in the case of freshwater ecosystems. Okay, so this is something which you have to remember. Where, there's a general feeling that the number of fish species is more in the marine ecosystem. But if you take the global statistics, it is slightly skewed towards freshwater fishes. Okay, and if you look at the species discovery, as you can see in this graph, over the period of 200 years, and you can see that the in at the big the recently the new species discoveries are now slightly slowing down, because the diversity is more or less explode, except in the deep sea and some critical other hidden ecosystems, and the valid species is also now coming on par with it, and which means, for majority of the common ecosystem, the number of species and the species diversity is quite known through the research. Okay, and yet a large number of species are marine species are discovered in the recent past. And another database, new marine species of fishes described at a rate of 100 to 150 per year, and including freshwater. And you can see that the number of freshwater species may be slightly higher. And the second website where you can look into, particularly for getting the photographs, or you can go by family ways, is the FishBase. And FishBase provide you with both classification, and if you go into the the metadata, you will get a lot of information, including its trophic level, the fish biology details, and all the other details you will get. So that is an advantage with FishBase. So that is another website which you can look into for identifying the fishes. It's a global database. And if you look at the marine fish diversity globally, then you can see that certain areas are shown red in color here, which of course is the coral triangle, and especially the belt around Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and that area. That area is the world's richest coral reef ecosystem, where you naturally find the largest marine fish diversity. And if you come to the east coast of Indian coast, you can see that Indian coast is also relatively high, particularly in the coral reef areas, very high in fish diversity. Okay, so India is actually one of the countries where we have around 2,000 plus species of marine fish in the coastal waters. Okay. And this is one of the latest checklist prepared by the Zoological Survey of India, which lists around 3,523 species of fishes from India, including marine and freshwater. So if you try to define marine fish, we can say that this is any fish which actually spend at least part of their life cycle in the marine ecosystem. We can say the marine species. And in India, we have around 2,000 plus species of marine fishes. Okay. And, the government of India and the organizations, ICR organizations, including National Fisheries Development Board and NBFGR, they are trying to define fish, and particularly to increase the popularity of the fish, and by declaring state fish. And for every state now, there's a state fish. And if you look at the representation of marine fish in the state fish, then you can see that there are certain, the union territory or state where marine fish is their state fish. For example, if you look at Lakshadweep, their state fish is the threadfin butterfly fish, as you can see here. And that fish is represented also in their logo. the government logo. Okay. And the second is the state fish of Maharashtra is the silver pomfret or the white pomfret, Pampas argenteus. And then state fish of Goa is the striped gray mullet, that is Mugil cephalus, which of course is may enter into the assurance systems as well. Okay. And coming to the taxonomy part, basically why there are not much amateurs in the field of marine fish taxonomy, unlike those in butterflies and damsel flies, is that this group, the marine fishes are highly diverse. Okay, and the taxonomy also may vary between even families. So the character may vary. So I have shown here some of the very common uh, uh, characters which is seen in the fishes, especially for the beginners. And generally we can classify them into two categories. One is actually the bony fish, and the other is the cartilaginous fishes, or the so-called chondrichthyes. And basically the difference is that here the endoskeleton is primarily bony, and these are the structures. I am not explaining that, but remember that there are certain characters are important, which I will tell you later. When you study the taxonomy of fish, one, you should understand the morphology, and second, you have to you should understand the body parts, particularly the appendages in fish are represented by fins. So the character of fins, the nature of the mouth, the body shape, everything is important. In some groups, of course, it's highly complicated, particularly when you have to look at the details of the air bladder and things like that, and even the vertebral counts are important in certain groups of fishes. Okay. And in the case of cartilaginous fishes, we can generally classify them into two few groups, particularly sharks and rays. And there also the taxonomy is important, but the taxonomic characters are less in this case. Okay. And another thing is, in addition to the morphology, the measurements, we call it morphometric characters. Morphometric characters are also important, especially when you the length, the proportion of the length to the head, etc., are important. And that is another thing which you have to remember when you try to identify the fish. This is a general diagram which show different kind of measurements. Two of the measurements are very, very important. In many of the fishes, the length is taken from the tip of the snout to the tip of the caudal fin. This is called the total length. Okay. And total length may vary. For example, in some cases, in even male and female, the caudal fin length may vary. So the standard practice is to take the standard length. Okay, standard length is the length from the tip of the snout to the caudal peduncle region here. Take a midpoint here, and that is the standard length. So standard length is usually represented or usually taken for measuring the length of the fish. And another thing to remember is how do you find out this is the dorsal side, this is the ventral side, this is the anterior side and posterior side. Okay. And how do you find out the left and right side of the fish? Very simple. A general practice in fish taxonomy is that you keep the head on your left side. Okay. On your left. And then your left is the fish left. Okay. And then things like that. So that means here, that is another thing to remember is that whenever you take a photograph, the general practice is that, the head is on your left. And that is actually the left side of the fish. And normally fish photos are also taken like that. Whenever you really wanted to take a photograph, few things to remember. I'm not going into the photography because that need another session. And one other thing to remember, when you get a marine fish and then you wanted to document them, one, make it, clean it using either salt water or fresh water. Salt water is preferred. Okay. And second thing is that keep all these fins up or straight. And sometimes it may be supported by spines, sometimes with rays. And in whatever may be the case, you keep them straight so that, if otherwise, it may, if it is not straight, and then it's very difficult from the photograph to find out whether it has one dorsal fin or two dorsal fin, etc. Okay, so keep all the fins straight and take the photograph. Okay, and preferably with a scale, or you keep it in a graph paper and take the photograph, or keep a scale so that you can compare the length even if you have no access to the fish. You can, from that scale, you can actually measure each and every body part. And now the softwares are available. For example, if you take a fish with a scale, if you take a photograph and with the software, you can measure each and every part of the body very precisely. Okay. And these are the things which you have to remember when you measure a fish. I'm not explaining the body parts, which is again, that is again time consuming. And then another thing to remember is that in sharks, we have placoid scales, but in all the bony fishes, primarily in India, we will get only two type of scales. And one is cycloids, which is very smooth, okay, especially the area which is inserted into the skin. And in some cases, the area which is inserted into the skin may have spines, okay. And then it is called a tenoid. Tena means spine. And the other one is very smooth. This is called cycloid. And another thing is in many families, the number of scales is very, very important. As you know, this is a lateral line, which is a sensory organ. And counting the lateral line scale is one of the taxonomic characters. Okay. And if you have, there are few things which you have to understand, especially when you count and determine the species. And one is actually the predorsal scales. Okay. Predorsal scale is actually, this is the starting of the dorsal fin. The number of scales before the dorsal fin is called predorsal. Okay. And then scales above the lateral line, what you have to do is you start from the region of the first dorsal fin and take an oblique line which ends up to the lateral line. And that will form the scales above the lateral line. And if you are actually beginning, you have scales below the lateral line, don't start from here, but you start from the anal fin base. And then take an oblique row of scales and count them. Okay, this is the lateral line. So these are the two things you have to remember, especially then if you really wanted to count the circumpeduncle scales, so you start from the peduncle region at the beginning. From there, you take the entire circular row of scales and count them. This is the circumpeduncular scales. So these two things are very important to remember. And then also look at the number of spines. And you can see that here in this case, it has two fins which are fused. Okay. And the first part is supported by spines. And second part is supported by rays, which are very soft. Okay. And then you can count, you can count the number here. You can count 1, 2, 3 like this, number of spines. And then you can see the rays. Okay. Rays at the tip, it may be branched or may not be branched. Okay. In many fishes, it is branched. So you can see that soft rays and the spines. Okay. So this is another thing, the nature of the dorsal fin, and then the number of spines and rays in each of the dorsal fin or any fin for that matter. This is another character. And in some fishes like the catfish, you may not have a fin here, especially in the second, as part of the second dorsal fin, but it will be a fleshy knob. Then it is called adipose fin. But in some cases like scombroids like tuna and mackerel, you may have small fins just behind the dorsal fin and just before the caudal fin. And these are called finlets. Okay, so adipose fin is actually a fleshy knob, and the finlets are smaller fins present in the dorsal and ventral side of the of the body, especially after the dorsal fin and the anal fin. Okay, so these are some other characters of the fishes. And then in determining some of the families or even genera, mouth position is important for fish. And some have a terminal mouth, which is very common. And in some cases, it may be inferior. Sometimes it may be subterminal. Sometimes it may be superior, depending upon the the feeding style. And in some cases, it may be elongated. In some cases, it is tubular. If there is a fish with a tubular snout, then most probably it may be a fish which is living among the coral reefs, so that it will give them the advantage of picking the food from among the corals, hard corals. Okay. And there are some fishes like the goatfish or the nemipterids, where they have a pair of barbels, which of course are the sensory organs, which help them in finding out the food from the bottom. Okay. So regarding the tail also, you can see different kind of patterns like forked, which is with equal halves, dorsal and ventral half. And in some cases, it is a truncate, which is almost cut. And then it's lunate, just like the lunar shape here. And some cases it may be round. And in the case of eel, it may be dorsal and ventral fin may be fused together and rounded. And in some cases, it may be pointed. And sometimes it may be lanceolate or looks like a lanceolate structure. Okay. And in some cases, in addition to spines, the body may also have scutes, as we'll see in the case of a carangid fish. Okay. And in some cases, like the surgeon fish, you will see a surgical blade-like structure here in the caudal peduncle. And that is an identifying character for the family and the surgeon fishes. Just like the surgical knife, you will see a spine-like structure here. So, so that which essentially means when you try to identify the fish, you have to look at minimum all these characters. But if you go into the details, and there are still more characters. Okay. And then the body shape. Most of the fishes, maybe this is a normal shape where it's the body, if you look from the front, it looks almost like an oval or a egg-shaped structure. And sometimes it may be side-oriented in the case of a flatfish. And sometimes it may be depressed, sometimes it may be cylindrical, sometimes it may be box-like, sometimes it is eel-shaped. And in few cases, the height of the body may be very high, so it's a deep-bodied one. Sometimes the body may be oval-shaped, sometimes it may be slender, sometimes it may be elongated. So body shape is another character, which of course is a family character, or even the character of an order, a fish order. So shape of the body is also important when you look at the taxonomy. Okay. And normally, when you look at the marine ecosystem, the fish, there are some fishes which live in the surface of water, surface layers of water, and they are called pelagic. Most of them are, since they live in the surface, they may be free swimming, and they may be the plankton feeders, etc. And majority of the fishes, in terms of number, they are pelagic fishes which live in the surface layers of water. Including the very common family like Clupidae with the sardines, herrings, etc. Then Scombridae like the tuna, mackerel, and seerfish. And Trichuridae, these are the pelagic fishes. And then we have the Carangidae, the Trivallis, jacks, etc., scats, etc. Then Harpodontidae, Stomatidae, Coryphaenidae, Rachycentridae, Mugilidae, Sphyrnidae, or like barracudas, and the flying fishes and unicorn coats. All these are the fishes which live on the surface. They are called pelagic. And there are some fishes which live at the bottom. That doesn't mean that they live only at the bottom, but they try to feed and live most of their time at the bottom, sea bottom. They are called demersal fish. Demersal fish and benthic fishes are slightly different. Benthic fishes always are present in the bottom of the sea. They remain immersed in the bottom. Demersal fishes usually live at the bottom of the sea, not within the sand, okay, necessarily. And the demersal fishes include the very common sharks, rays, eels, catfishes, lizardfishes, groupers, snappers, threadfins, godfishes, cyanids, silver bellies, pomfrets, mullets, the flatfishes, etc. These are the common demersal fishes. Okay. So I'll start with the common sharks. As you know, sharks are very important in terms of the marine ecosystems because of multiple reasons. And one of the most important feature of the chondrichthyes, including shark and rays, is that they are slowly maturing or late maturing, and they produce only lesser number of the young ones. We can consider them as the tigers in the oceans, just like a tiger. The fecundity rate is less, and they are the top. In many cases, they are the top predators. Okay. And, if you look at the Indian coastal ecosystem, some of the species are commonly seen. And one of the things which is commonly seen is one of the primitive chondrichthyan called chimera. Chimeras are, there are 4 species of chimeras in India, and but they are not often seen. Wherever you have a harbor which where the trawlers are operated, and then you will see these chimeras. Okay. And then we have a series of shark and rays, which we will see one by one. And this is the very common requiem shark, the black tip shark. As you can see, the black marks on the tip of each fin. and this is called Carcharinus limbatus. It's a very small shark. And then we have the white cheek shark, another species, which is an endangered species. And which is another thing called the Scoliodon laticordus. It's called the spade nose because it has a spade-like nose here. And this is relatively small, it measure maximum 1.5 feet in length. Very small shark. And Scoliodon laticordus. This is one of the small, and it's consumed as well. And then you have the white the whale shark, which of course many of you are aware. This is the largest fish. Primarily because of the shape, it is named whale shark. Okay, and largest known living fish, and uh, it may grow up to 18, 19 meters. Okay, and it's actually an animal which is in the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act as well. Very interesting behavior, even though it's a large fish, it's migratory, and it feeds on primarily on plankton. It's a plankton feeder. Normally, it will not attack human beings, but if you seem close to that, then even the beating of the tail may cause a problem because it's a huge animal. Okay, and now there are a lot of awareness about this organism. Recently, the Wildlife Trust of India have done some, and the Wildlife Institute of India have done some tagging experiments, which shows that the species in the Gujarat coast, they migrate to longer distances. They come to the southern part of India during certain seasons, and then they some of the populations, they migrate up to the Mozambique in the Africa, and they go back, which essentially means that this is a species which actually migrate to longer distances. That we have a population, or the genetic population, which is actually migratory, and that is one of the method of survival for these larger organisms. So they migrate, and that is how they keep the genetic bottleneck very broader. Okay, so that is something about the whale shark. And then we have another group of very critically endangered species called hammerheads. And the problem with these larger species in the marine ecosystems are they are the ones which are easily caught. Then, since they are larger in size, they can be easily located, and that can be easily caught. And that is the reason why many of the predatory fishes in the marine ecosystem, they are in danger because they are easily caught. And one such example is this hammerhead shark. As you can see, we have three species here in India, and this is the scalloped hammerhead, Sphaerina levini, which is a critically endangered species. And since they have a very peculiar head, evolved in probably as a result of very strict high competition in the ocean, and they are not as efficient as the normal shark in swimming. So they're easily caught in the as bycatch in many of the fishing gears. Okay, this is a hammer-headed shark. We have 4 species here. And Sphaerina macroren is also critically endangered. It's all you can identify them based on the pattern of the hammer, and also the other characters like the fins. And if you walk through the fishing harbors, you will see another kind of shark, which is very, very peculiar in its shape. As you can see, when you look at the tail pattern, you will see that the tail pattern is entirely different, which is almost like a thresher. Okay, which is earlier days it is used for the threshers are the wooden structures used to compile the mud, especially in walls, etc. So it has a very, very long tail, and then that is the identifying feature of this family of thresher shark called Alopidae. And we have few species of thresher sharks in India, and we can see that their tail length is almost equal to the body length. So this is the peculiarity of the thresher sharks. They are also vulnerable. Alopias vulpinus is one species, big eye thresher, easily identified with a larger eye. Okay, and this is another species called Alopias superciliosus with a pit, and relatively smaller caudal fin. And those who are actually nature lovers and the people who are you often visiting the coastal ecosystems, you should look for this species. And there are no confirmed report in the recent past from India. This is called sawfish. The genus is Pristis. We have 3 species of Pristis in India, and nobody has reported this species in India in the recent past. Critically endangered. And you can see the identifying feature is just like the saw. You can see the teeth, elongated snout, and the teeth on either side, as you can see from the dorsal view. And this is a view from the aquarium. And in many of the world's aquarium, you will still see the species, but in the ocean ecosystem, they are all critically endangered, as you can see here. And we have around 5 species globally. All are critically endangered. Probably they are more endangered, critically endangered than the tiger. So that is about the sawfish or Pristis. So these are the animals which you have to keep an eye on, particularly those who are the prefer to go to the beach for any kind of observation. Okay. And India has 3 species of Pristis, but none of them are recorded in the recent past. Actually, these Indo-Pacific species, they are also migratory. And since they have very peculiar shape, which of course is a disadvantage for this animal, and they are easily caught in the fishing nets. And that is one of the reasons why they are all critically endangered. And then we have the race, particularly the Mylobid bats, bat race, and this is a flap nose ray, which is also very large and since very easy to catch. The mobile rays are all they just move like a bat, and they're also easily caught because they have a very huge demand for as a food fish. And we have a large number of rays in India, and especially the rhinobatos. And ankylostoma is a very common species in the larger fishing harbors in India. And all of them are many species of rays and sharks are vulnerable. Okay. And if you look at the marine fishes in India and consider the vulnerable species or the threatened species, you can see the sharks and rays are the most common ones there. Then coming to the bony fishes, and one of the most popular and abundant, probably the most abundant fish in India is the fish in the Clupidae family. As you can see, the Clupidae family has some very peculiar character. They have only one dorsal fin, and then they have a series of keel-like structure on the ventral part of the body. And then they are plankton feeding. They have a gill racker, which is with a very long spines, and the Sardinella longiceps. So the oil sardine is one species which is very common and abundant as far as Indian coastal waters are concerned. And there are some difference in the distribution pattern, particularly as a result of climate change. East Coast was not a very good fishing ground earlier. But now, because of the climate change, the species from the west coast are moving towards the east coast, and then we have good fishery of oil sardine happening in Andhra and some part of Tamil Nadu and some part of Odisha as well. So that is some of the changes as a result of climate vagaries. And also remember, there are different kind of the morphotypes available for Indian sardine. Indian oil sardine, Sardinella longiceps, from different parts of the body. But in general, compared to the other sardine, these are more round. You take a cross section, or if you look from the side, it's more rounder or more bulkier than the remaining species. And that is how you can distinguish an oil sardine from the others. But now in the recent parts, especially in the last 1 year or 2 years, there is again the fishermen complain that the size of the oil sardine is coming down. And probably it's something to investigate why it's happening and things like that. And then we have lesser sardines, which is, relatively body is highly compressed. And Sardinella albella is one species. The gold stripe sardine, just a golden stripe on the lateral side of the body. This is another species. And Fimbriata is another species, Sardinella fimbriata. And Sardinella gibbosa, sorry, one O is missing. Gibbosa is another species. So all these are called lesser sardines, the Indian compared to the Indian oil sardine. Okay. Then we have another group of fishes, which of course is in the family of Flupidae, but in the genus Hilsa. Okay. And Hilsa elisha, the new name is Tenulosa elisha, which is very common. It is present in the west coast, but very, very rare. But in the east coast, it is very common. It is an anadromous fish moving from the salt water to the fresh water for breeding, and very popular in the West Bengal and the Ganges, where they migrate even hundreds of kilometers upstream in the river for breeding. They also have very, compared to the sardine, the height of the body is very high. Okay, and then posterior, most fin rays not filamentous. And then they have no frontal parietal striae, and then have a notch at the front of the mouth. So this higher body distinguish them from the other clupids, and this is a migratory species as well. This is called the Hilsa. In the new name is Tenulosa elisha. Okay, and we have the Chirocentrus dorab, another very peculiar species. As you can see, it's very easy to identify this fish, primarily because it has only one dorsal fin, which is located more towards the posterior side and in line with the anal fin. This is the anal fin. Okay. And the body is relatively free from scales. Some scales are present, which are very, very small. Okay. And again, just like the oil sardine, the next most popular bony fish in India is the fish in the Scombridae family. It's called Indian mackerel. Indian mackerel, most of you are, quite familiar with that, and very easy to identify because it has a spiny dorsal fin and a second dorsal fin which is supported by rays. And in dorsal part of the body is you can see the fluorescent green to a blue color with some scattered spots. And then two keels are on the caudal fin region, and you can see 5 pair of finlets here. And in some cases, you will see a black spot at the base of the pectoral fin. So all these things identify a mackerel, Indian mackerel, which is this second most popular pelagic fish in India. And we have two other species also in the case of mackerel. And one is Rastraliger brachysoma. This is short-bodied mackerel. The body size is very short. Height of the body is high. And we have, there is supposed to be a third species called Rastraliger fauni, which of course is very common in the eastern part of the India, and may be associated with the Andamans as well. This is called Rastraliger fauni. Okay, so this is a very, comparatively very long body. Okay, and this is the common Indian mackerel, Rastraliger canagurta. So these three species of mackerels are there, reported from Indian waters. But the most common and abundant form, particularly both in east and west coast, is the Indian mackerel, Rastraliger canagurta. And anchovies are very sought after food fish, and this is called white baits. And we have several species of them, and identifying them is primarily based on their lateral line and scale counts. Okay, this is one way you will identify them. And we have also a golden anchovy, which is present in some part of northern west coast, and this is called golden anchovy, Colia dusumeri. And then we have the surgeon fishes. As I said, they have a surgical blade-like spine here. And many of them are aquarium fishes, very popular aquarium fishes. It's also edible, and they are called the surgeon fishes and tanks. They are primarily algae eaters, very popular in the coral reef areas, as you can see here. Quite a large number of species are there in Indian waters. So another thing is the frogfish. It's also called the handfish because they use this pelvic fin, and which is almost used as a leg. Okay, so they are, and it looks almost like a frog, and hence the name frogfish. And most of the taxonomists use the name handfish because they use this pectoral fin as a hand to walk on the seafloor. Okay, so and then they have an they belongs to the genus Antennarias because they have an antenna here. You can see here, and it's nothing but a modified dorsal fin spine, and at the end you can see a lure, which of course is used to attract the prey for feeding. Okay, so they are called. We have few species of frogfish in India, and Antenarius nummifer is a very common species. And we have the Apagonidae with the very large eyes, and these are called the cardinal fishes. Okay, and these are also aquarium fishes, as you can see from the photographs. And then we have the butterflies in the ocean. They belong to the family Chaetodontidae. They are called butterfly fishes, primarily the genus Chaetodont. And again, very easy to identify if you look from the photographs also. For example, this is a red-tailed butterfly with a red tail. And this is the Indian vagabond butterfly with a very characteristic pattern of lines in the body. As you can see, many of them have elongated, the snout, pointed tubular snout, which of course help them in picking up the food material from among the hard corals. Okay, so they are very common in the rocky reef and coral reef areas. These are the other butterfly fishes in India. All of them are aquarium fishes. They are the butterflies in the ocean. And then we have a banner fish also, which is very easily you can identify them with a very long dorsal fin ray, which is of course white in color. Body has a dark and white shade and tubular snout. Then we have the Nemipterus, which is very characteristic feature is the extension of the dorsal one ray in the caudal fin. Okay, and this is one of the feature for the Nemipterids. It's a very common food fish, and you can identify them based on the the scale pattern and the color pattern in the body. And this is the most common species, Nemipterus japonicus. And then we have a series of eels. Unlike the freshwater eel, the marine eels have a very prominent canine teeth, and the pattern of the teeth, canine and worm-marine teeth inside the mouth, all these things determine the taxon of this organism. So for a common or amateur, it's rather difficult to identify the species, primarily because you have to count the number of teeth inside the mouth, and also that is one of the primary characters to identify them. Okay. So they are called moray eels, Morainous and other also called conger eels, predatory, and also aquarium fish. Some of them are highly colorful. And then we have groupers, which of course are coral or reef dwelling fishes and highly economically valuable. As you can see them, Penophilis grouper, in Malayalam we call it Kalava. And they are also highly specious group in India. And then we have the rabbit fish, which of course there are 4 species of rabbit fish in India, and many of them are found in the estuarine ecosystem. Now they are also cultivated in cages in India. And then we have the angel fishes. It's not the angel fish in freshwater, but it's a marine angels and Pomacanthus, emperor. But this is, what you have to understand is that they have strikingly different color patterns when they are young and when they are adult. Okay. In the younger stages, they look entirely different in coloration. So that also, especially for identifying the angel fishes in the marine ecosystem, you should understand the pattern when they are young and when they are adult. Okay. As you can see, same fish, but looks entirely different in the juvenile stage and when they're adult. And you may also see some of the fishes which live among the sea anemone tentacles, and they are called clownfishes. And clownfishes are again very popular aquarium fishes, but they are very common in the coral reef areas. Okay, and live among they have a mutual association with the sea anemones. They live among the tentacles of the sea anemones, as you see in the photographs. And now the CMFRA is breeding them in captivity and selling the young ones as well. So one of the popular aquarium fishes, Amphiprion species. And then we have the blue, and then we have the damsels, different kind of damsels in the coral reef as well as rocky reef ecosystems. And then we have the parrotfishes with a very characteristic beak they have, which is primarily used for picking up the mollusks from the coral reef ecosystem and to crush it. Okay, so they have a fused teeth, and which looks almost like a parrot, and hence the name parrotfishes. We have different genera in Indian waters. And if you look at the estuarine ecosystem, another very characteristic, a fish with a very characteristic body, almost rectangular in shape, with the blotches or spots, black spots. It's called scatophagus. It's also called scat. It's not a marine species, it's primarily estuarine species. You will see them in backwaters and estuaries, and very popular aquarium fish. Scatophagus argus, or it's called scat. Then another aquarium attraction is the scorpion fish. It's also called lionfish. Very good fish for photography and for ornamental fish keeping. And the feature is striations in the body, and they're very, very long and very long, the spines in the body, in the fins. And they are also poisonous because it's neurotoxin. They produce neurotoxin through the spines, and they are called lionfishes. Okay, Chirois is the common genus in India, and we have several species of the lionfishes in India. These are, some of the other scorpion fishes which you see in Indian waters. Then we have groupers, already I told you, sorry, it's a repetition. Then we have 6 species of sea cucumbers in India, sea horses in India. And unlike other fishes, they always move vertically, and a very characteristic snout. And identifying feature is you count the number of rings in the tail, and also the spine features, and the nature of the tubular snout. All these things determine the characters. For example, this is the hippocampus cuda, which is very, very common in Indian waters, with a different color patterns. For example, some of them are brown, some of them are yellow, even though they are called yellow seahorse, and some with a fine mottled black spots across the body. And this is a fish seahorse which you can identify easily. It's called trimaculatus because it has 3 spots in the body on the lateral side. Okay. And so, and then another group of tube fishes as well. This is actually all the seahorses and pipe fishes are in the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act in India, primarily because it's highly traded and used in Chinese medicine, and that is why it is endangered. Okay. And then we have another very interesting group of organism called tuna. It's also scombrid. As you can see, tuna body shape is it's highly streamlined, and you can see the finlets as well. And the tunas come from the Spanish word, and we have large number of tunas. This is called Oxys tassad, or called frigate mackerel. And then we have bullet tuna with a very long and slender body. And the yellowfin is a very common species, and commercially highly important. Very characteristic yellow, elongated, high fins in the body, and very long, as you can see the total length, and very common. And commercially highly valuable species is the yellowfin tuna, Tunas albicaris. And this is a big eye tuna with a very large eye, Tunas obesus. And then long tail tuna with a characteristic elongated slender tail. Okay. And this is the species very common in Lakshadweep. It's called skipjack tuna. You can see the characteristic uh, elongated black lines on the lateral part of the body. And then we have the striped bonito and dogtooth tuna. And then the relatives of tuna are the scombridae or the Spanish mackerel. In Malayalam, we call it nemmin. Okay. And we have 3 species in India, but the feature is, very long dorsal fin. This makes it different from the tuna. Tuna has a very short dorsal fin. Here, the Spanish mackerel or the nemmin has a long dorsal fin with 15 to 18 spines. And then it's very large sized animal and very good table fish. This is a narrow barred Spanish mackerel, Scombromoris commerson. And then we have one more species, Scombromoris guttatus, Indo-Pacific king mackerel. And then we have the wahoo, which with the characteristic striations in the body. It's called Acanthocybium solandri. And we have something similar to the carangids or the para in Malayalam. And this is called Megalopsis cordaila. But you can very well identify them with a very large eye. We call it Vangada in Malayalam. And this is with the striations in the muscle here. And this is Megalopsis cordaila. It's a large eye with a torpedo scat. And then we have very interesting fish. This is called the swordfish and the billfishes. And you can see there are 2 species very common in India. You can see the dorsal part, sorry, the beak. The dorsal beak is very long, strong, flat, oval in cross section. In the case of a swordfish, it's called Siphias gladius, is one of the common species. Very large fish. And then black marl or billfishes with a very shorter, relatively shorter and arched, the sword-like structure in the dorsal part of the mouth. Okay, and then we have the fin shape is also different in the case of billfish. And some other billfishes, some other genera, they have a very long sail-like dorsal fin, and that is the feature of the billfish. Okay, billfish. It's just like the sail. The dorsal fin is just like a sail, very high as well. And this is the billfish. They also have the elongated sword-like structure. Then there are some fishes which looks like a dolphin in the anterior part of the body. This is called the Coryphaenidae family. Coryphaena hippurus is one species which is present in both east and west coast of India. They have another feature is that males have a bony crest and they have a very long caudal fin, dorsal fin starting from behind the head and extending up to the caudal fin, long blue dorsal fin. That's a feature of the dolphin fish. Then we have the crocus with different species in the family Cyanide. And then we have an ornamental fish called Theraponidae. It's called Therapon jarbo and other genera as well. They have a characteristic band in the body in different shapes and numbers, and that determines the species as well. And another commercially valuable species is the carangid. We call it trevally, and Malayalam we call it para. And there are large number of species, like this is a very common bluefin trevally, Caranx melampygus, and other species also. We call it Vattapara. So this is, there are more than 40 species in India, the carangids. And and we have a pomfret avoli, which is in the Carangidae family. That's called the Parastomatus niger, which is darker in color. It's not a pomfret, but more closely related to the carangids because they have scutes here. That is one identifying feature of all carangids. Okay, and the caudal peduncle region, they have large number of scutes. So that means this pomfret belongs to the family Carangidae. This is called black pomfret. At the same time, if you look at the white pomfret or the silver pomfret, it's a different family called the Stomatidae, but they don't have the scutes here. So that's how they but in the look, they are entirely similar, again, as you can see in the shape as well. But look at the scutes and the color. If the scutes are there, then it's in the Carangidae family, it's called a black pomfret. If the scute is not there, they are the other pomfrets, including the silver pomfret. Okay. And this is the Lactarius and the species. And this is one aquarium fish, which of course is very common in the estuarine waters. It's called a monifish, Monodactylus argenteus. It's a croaker. And then we have longer fish called barracuda, Spirnea jello, and other species. Barracuda, very commercially valuable and larger fishes. And then we have the hairtails. In Malayalam, we call it Vala, it's a Lepturacanthus, and other genus as well. Then we have catfishes. Catfishes are also vulnerable in Indian coast because they are caught in large numbers. They are also in different genera, as you can see. Now the classification is entirely different, but you look at the different characters, including the pattern of the air bladder, etc., to find out the species. Then we have the trigger fishes, which is very common in the reef ecosystems because they have a trigger-like dorsal fin, which is used to attach themselves to the corals, etc. And then that is why they are called trigger fishes in the family Ballistidae. These are all different kinds of trigger fishes. And then we have very, very unique fish in the sea. It's called flatfish because the body is dorsoventrally flattened. And during the evolution, during the life history stages, later life history stages, both the eyes migrate to the one side of the body. Okay, if you look at this fish, it's called a tongue sole because it's like a tongue, and it's a flatfish, Cynoglossus arel, and both the eyes are on the left side. In some flatfishes, it may be on the right side. Okay, so it depends on the family. And these are all different species of flatfishes that we have. But you have to look at this species, especially though in those who are in south west coast of India. You have to look at this species, which is almost very, very rare in Indian coast. They are still there in Andhra, and that is the only place where you'll see them in large numbers. This is called Indian halibut. It's a flatfish with a very sharp canines all over the sharp teeth all over the mouth. It's a bottom living and large fish. It may grow up to 30 centimeter in length. It's called Setoda serumi. It's Indian halibut. Very rare, particularly in the Kerala and nearby regions. We are not getting it in the recent past. And then we have the puffer fish in different forms, and then we have the species called sunfish. Very rare, but very, very, very unique shape, which you will never miss in identifying it. But we have few species. This is mola mola, the sunfish. Okay. And the caudal fin is replaced with a rudder-like structure here. That is the identifying feature. And they have the dorsal and anal fin, which is very high and located towards the posterior end of the body. And it is one of the heaviest fish in the planet. Okay, mola mola. So these are about some of the very common species of marine fishes that you come across in India. And then if you have any doubts, you can ask.
Thank you, sir. So there are a couple of questions in the chat box, which I shall read out. So where to record observations? You have to download iNaturalist app, and you can record your observations in that. Is Hilsa the fish that is also popular in Bangladesh? So can you answer that?
Yeah, that is actually, this is in the Bay of Bengal region. This is the same thing in Bangladesh and West Bengal. Same. It's the most popular one and one of the most expensive fish also there. Yes. Yeah. In West Coast also they are there, but the hills are, but it's not very frequent there. Yeah, then from those who are observing fish, you can also observe the fish from the market. But only thing is, for example, if I am observing a fish from the market in Kerala, sometimes it may be coming from Andhra Pradesh or from Tamil Nadu. So that you have to actually confirm. If it's especially larger markets, it's especially there are two states where marine fishes are highly sought after, West Bengal and Kerala. So there, if you look at the market, and then definitely you have to analyze from where it is coming. So that is the only thing to remember. Otherwise, in the local market, and if it is, you are sure that it is locally caught, you can record the observation, no issues.
Right. Somebody's asking if lionfishes are invasive here.
Interesting question. But lionfishes are invasive in other part of the world, especially in Mediterranean and other regions. They are all Indian Ocean origin, and through the Suez Canal, they enter into the Mediterranean. In the Mediterranean, they are invasive, but not in India. Okay. So in Mediterranean, it's a very serious issue. They are spending millions of dollars to remove them because it's a predatory fish, and it is a threat to other indigenous fish in that region. So that means lionfish is not invasive in India, but it is invasive in other part of the world, like Mediterranean.
So another one very fun question maybe, but equally important. What determines the taste of fish?
Well, there are different answers to that question. It depends upon the content of different fatty acids in the body, and that determines the taste. And the taste also depends upon your genetic imprint as well. For example, a
Yeah.
person in Uttar Pradesh may not like a marine fish, and persons in the west coast of India, like the maritime state like Kerala, we prefer primarily the marine fish. It all depends upon the taste, and preference depend upon the personal feelings and genetic imprints in your brain as well. So, but the taste definitely, the taste, each fish tastes different, primarily because of the kind of proteins and amino acids in unique to them, and their variations in their concentrations, etc.
So Farida ma'am has asked, what is a good key to identify marine fish? Means like a field guide. Is there
Uh,
anything
Yeah,
particular?
that is what I told you in the beginning. We don't have a field guide as such in India, but there are. If you are in some islands like Lakshadweep and Andamans, there are some books available specifically to the reef fishes of Lakshadweep and reef fishes of Andamans. But for the in general, for the identification of commercially valuable fish, I recommend that but it's not a field guide basically, because color photos are not there. But the reliable thing is there is a book by Zoological Survey of India, which is freely downloadable. It's called the Commercially Valuable Sea Fishes of India by Talwar. Okay, and Jingran and Talwar. So that book, sorry, Cracker, and that book you can freely download from their website. And that is one book I will recommend. And also, if you look at the CMFRA and Fisheries Survey of India, in their websites also, they have basically identification guides. But unfortunately, many of these publications do not have color photographs, uh, which, which of course is a limitation as far as India is concerned. The problem is that, the diversity in the marine fish. You cannot include everything in a single book, but there are some very good field guides available with FAO. There also, but I can give a list of books. Some of the recent publications are there for identifying the fishes in the Western Indian Ocean.
What may be the actual reason for size decline of sardine nowadays?
Well, uh, we definitely don't know, but it may be because of the variations in the food content available for the younger fishes to grow. Maybe because of climate change, difference in the pattern of the phytoplankton in the region, etc. All these things may determine. And also, you have to give the time for them to become mature. So that means catching a large number of juveniles, it's all we may also contribute. So I believe that it may be climate change and the variations in the plankton, because for Sardinella, they prefer certain kind of plankton, particularly diatoms. And if they are available not in plenty, definitely that may impede their growth, etc. Yeah, I naturalist, I think
So,
many of the youngsters have to come, they you have to contribute photographs, and then only the public participation will increase.
right.
Well, one more question. Why is keeping corals illegal in India? Very simple, because all the corals are in the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. And that is the reason why, keeping them in the aquarium is banned in India, even though many people do it illegally, but still keeping corals, including the soft corals, is illegal primarily because they are in the Schedule 1. Schedule 1 species, keeping them in your personal custody or private custody is an illegal affair. And that is why.
So which fish are rich in omega-3 freshwater? Are rich in omega-3 freshwater
Well,
or marine,
omega,
and what
no.
determines?
Yeah, both are there. Omega-3 fatty acid is a common feature in all the fishes, and that is why it make the meat is uh, highly digestible and rich in nutrients. It is there in both freshwater and marine. It depends upon the species, the quantity.
How can we explore fishes present in critical zones?
Well, there is, see, the survey methods and observation methods are the same. The critical zones means in India, critical fish habitats are basically the coral reef areas. There even diving and, the transect in the water will help in surveying. And you don't have to even collect the fish. You just take the photographs in a transect, and then it can be identified, or even can be identified from the videos you take during diving.
Right. So somebody was again asking if to add the observation in iNaturalist for the CNC challenge. So it wouldn't be okay if we go to a fish landing harbor and just, for example, for mackerel or something, to location tag that, because it might be from somewhere else, right?
Yeah. No, only thing, if you can ensure that, it is locally caught, then there is no issue.
Right.
Especially in a commercial center, do not go. And in the coastal sites where the fish landing happens, if you go there and even the market you collect, it's otherwise from the urban market, if you collect, you cannot ensure that.
So
PP,
fish landing harbor, like landing places we could go where they actually catch
yes,
live fish, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
Especially in
there is also
the
bycatch, no? So you have explained, you have like told us today about a lot of the fish that we eat and all regularly. But what about the bycatch that we can see sometimes, like starfish and all those kind of things?
Yeah, it can be, because the only thing is that, the bycatch landing in Kerala, for example, if it happens in Kerala, it doesn't mean that it may be from the Kerala coast, because the trawler may be going somewhere else and catching it. That is the only
Right.
difficulty in that. That also you have to
Yeah.
ensure that. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Another question is PPT sharing. It can be done. No, it can be done. And
Okay, so you can share it. I can share it through the groups.
yeah, and then artificial reef installation helps in fish aggregation. Yes. But the problem that need a long-term study, probably. Artificial reef, the issue in the marine ecosystem is that it's all open. And wherever you get a hiding place, fishes will aggregate there. Okay. And that means, indirectly, it may also promote exploitation in that sense, because they use it, many of them use it as a hiding place. That means you are actually aggregating them in a place, and then you are harvesting them from there. So that means it need a long-term study. It may be sometimes the persons or scientists doing that may differ with me, but from a conservation angle, it has to be studied. It definitely will help in the help aggregating the fish, but in the long term, whether that will lead to an overexploitation is something which we need to study.
Okay, so thank you. One more question I have. So if we do a little shore walk, then how do we and where do we look for like different marine organisms? If you can just like tell us, then it will be easier for us maybe.
Yeah, see, just if you go for a shore walk, it depends upon the place where you walk. For example, if it is an intertidal zone with the rocky structures there in the reef, sorry, in the beach, then the chance of encountering species is more. Otherwise, if it is a sandy beach, then probably you will encounter the mollusks, crabs, etc. and whatever is actually the left out fish from the fisherman's catch. So these are the things which you probably will come across. Okay.
So,
And
somebody has asked, whale shark meat is not a significant delicacy in India. Then why is shark population getting low?
well, that is a different question altogether. You know, the problem with shark is that I told you it's a large-bodied animal, so it is often caught in many fishing gears. So the mortality, one of the primary reason for their mortality is actually incidental catches in the fishing gears. One. And second, earlier there was, for example, in the case of whale shark, there was actually a targeted, you know, hunting, and that was primarily for, because it's a large animal, and the shark is hunted primarily for their fins, because from their fins, the shark soup extract was made, and then that is a delicacy with which is very high value in the international market, because it's made in soups for as a luxury item. And then sharks were hunted just for taking the fins, and that is why they are caught. It's not more the meat; it's for the fin. Okay. Now the India has few years back, India banned the export of shark fins, and then awareness came. All this helped in conserving or reducing the targeted poaching. Okay.
Okay, next somebody has asked about physiological changes that occurs during migration. Does it
Well,
happen to?
yes, yes, yes. Because it's all driven by the interior, the physiological mechanisms. So the whole migration is triggered by that. There's an interesting question. Why the Indian fishermen arrested by the Sri Lanka Navy? Very simple, because there is a law called uh, United Nations Law of the Sea. It's called UNCLOS, and that defines the coastal, the sovereign right of each country over the marine zone. And it's called exclusive economic zone. It's 200 nautical mile area. And unfortunately, India and Sri Lanka are very close together. And there is actually there's a mutually agreed area or a border. It's not line there, but there is a border, mutually agreed border. And that is an area from which you have to fish. The Indian fisherman has to fish from the exclusive economic zone of India. And then, since there is no line, fishermen may cross over. And when they cross over, it's an illegal exercise. So they catch them, and vice versa also it happens. So that is why this crossing over of the exclusive economic zone as a boundary, that is the reason why it's all happens. And there may be also purposeful, because Sri Lankan waters are all very rich in marine resources. So there may be also some, even despite their knowledge, they may go sometimes. Okay.
I think Pranav has a question. Can you unmute and ask Pranav?
Yes, sir. Uh, am I audible?
Yeah.
Hi, sir. So, I recently started this hobby of identifying fish that fishmongers bring here.
Mm.
So, I use a number of resources which you already have mentioned here, like the FAO guide and the fish base and your own checklist about the fishes of Kerala. So, and I recently identified the Erythroclis acarina, which was confirmed by yourself, which I uploaded to INET, and it was an first observation on the INET. So I wanted to ask you, how reliable would be the location of that? Because it is only brought to me by the fishmonger.
Yeah, normally, if it is not in a market, all the local fish sellers, they collect only from the local areas. That is, then probably you have to ask them for confirmation. That is the only way out, from where they get it and from where they bring it. And if it's from the local market and local fishing harbor, there's no issue. But only thing is that don't go to the urban market. Then there you cannot actually ensure that from where it is. Even from it is from the east and west coast is also there may be an overlap. The only thing is that you have to confirm with the person who actually bring the fish, and that is the only
Okay,
way out.
sir. But still, they would only say like a vague location like Vizhinjam or Kovalam, something like that.
That
So,
is that is not that important. For example,
okay,
fishes may migrate, especially it's a
okay,
ocean, and the distribution is very extended. So that is not an issue, except in some reef living fishes which are localized. Otherwise, it's not that an issue.
okay, sir. Thank you.
And regarding coral, I will say that, all the hard corals are in the schedule 1. So that means keeping any hard coral is an issue. But soft corals, you have to look at the recently revised Wildlife Protection Act and look at the schedules and which group is excluded. Then you have to look and then find out. Okay.
So are there any marine invasive fishes that we see here?
No. As far as my knowledge goes, none of the marine fishes are here which are invasive. But we have mollusks, we have other species like the slugs, ascidians, etc., which are invasive, but no fish so far.
Is it true that the natural reefs have kind of like disappeared from our coast from, like I would ask you about Kerala?
See, in Kerala, we have no coral reefs because geologically it is not possible because of the very peculiarity of the coastal shelf region. And we have no larger reefs, but we have only rocky reefs. Rocks which functions almost like a coral reef, but it's not because we have only scattered reefs. But there were reports in at the beginning of the 20th century that during the Challenger expedition, they have dug out larger tons of corals from some regions in Travancore, earlier reports, but there was no subsequent survey, which essentially means that Kerala coast has no larger coral reef ecosystem as such. We have only patchy corals.
Okay. So mainly, I think the small fishes, they come to mangrove ecosystems to breed, is it?
Not necessarily. There are some species which come to the mangrove ecosystem for breeding because that's the only area where they get a hiding place. Okay. And other things, the rocky reefs which are here, which are extended rocks into the shallow waters, they actually act as a hiding and breeding place.
Thank you.
But
Has
again,
has the disappearance of mangroves from Kerala coast or the western coast of India, especially, has that had a significant impact on any of the marine life?
Yeah, it may have because as such, that kind of an observation or long-term study have not been done in Kerala. And also remember that Kerala never had that kind of an extensive mangrove tract like those who found in the west coast, like in Odisha or West Bengal or things like that. We have only smaller rivers and smaller mangrove patches, even from the beginning. So we cannot actually predict, just like the Bidharkanika or Sundarbans, we have larger, breeding happening in this region. But of course, definitely, these are the breeding grounds for fish. But how far the destruction of mangroves impacted the fish diversity, we have no long-term studies as such.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of all the questions. Okay. So if you have any other doubts, you can always message us and we can contact Biju sir and he can reply to you. Sir, I hope you can share the PPT. The recording of this will also be shared on our YouTube channel and also in the Young Naturalist CNC YouTube channels. So it's almost coming to a close. So very interesting session, sir. And I hope we can have a freshwater session also sometime soon. That'll be also very interesting. So thank you so much for taking the session for us today. And I extend my thank you from the group, the CNC working committee here and also WWF. So I hope everybody enjoyed and looking forward to a really great CNC for Kerala this time. For all of India, I mean, this session was all for all of India. So thank you, sir, and good night, everybody. Looking
Thank
for the
you.
next session. Thank
Okay.
you.
Night.
All right. Bye-bye.